Eto na. Oh. Eto na talaga mga kababayan, ang star witness ni Risa Hontiveros laban kay Pastor Apollo si Quiboloy. Na ayon dito kay Manang, ginarjar daw siya ni Pastor Quiboloy. Ginanyan. Oh. Maniniwala kayo mga kababayan? Eto ba ang mga type ni Pastor Quiboloy? Na lakas makadilima ang dating. Parang pinagbiyak na bunga ni Saba. Paulit-ulit daw siyang niromansa ni Quiboloy daw mga kababayan. Dahil ang sabi, mapupunta daw siya sa langit. Oh. At ewan lang natin ha, kung inyong pagbabasihan ng kanyang testimonya mga kababayan, may paiyak-iyak tapos sabay ganyan. Oh. Wala talagang transition ang kanyang mga kababayan, galing pag-iyak, biglang galit. Oh. Biglang ganyan ang itsura. Pakinggan po natin ang kanyang testimonya ha. Pero bago po yan mga kababayan, gusto pa lang natin pasalamatan itong ating napakabait na viewer from Canada. Ang kababayan natin si Eleanor Sito. Thank you so much po Madam Eleanor. Narito po ang video.
Intended for me and instructed me to travel to Cebu where he would share this important message. He was also scheduled to preach in Cebu that Sunday.
Okay.
Upon arriving in Cebu City, we arranged for him to stay at the Park Place Hotel in Fuente Osmeña. That evening,
na sa hotel.
he instructed me to remain in the hotel, while Nilda Linda, the assigned worker, returned to the worker's house. When we were alone, I asked if I could just sleep on the sofa as it was a suite room.
Oh, nasa sweet room daw sila mga kababayan. Silang dalawa lang daw ni Quiboloy sa Cebu.
Instead, he insisted that I would sleep beside him.
Tabi ka dito, Teresita. Teresita daw ang kanyang pangalan mga kababayan eh.
And even said in Bisaya, compatible gyud taging kay parehas man og color ang atong suot.
O compatible na sila dahil pareho sila ng kulay ng suot.
Translated, we are compatible because our outfits are of the same colors.
Wow!
I was wearing red pajamas with white dots,
Papatol ba si Quiboloy dito mga kababayan? Pasintabi na ha. Oh.
while he was
Ewan
dressed
lang
in a
natin.
red t-shirt and white pajama, white pants coincidentally. His words made me feel uneasy and quite nervous. And I saw a different personality in him. But I was quick to dismiss that unusual feeling. And because I had previously witnessed Ingrid Canada or ICC, Teresita Dandan, TD,
ICC.
and Velina Salinas slept in his room alternately, it led me to believe that it was just normal and harmless.
Harmless.
Moreover, we had been conditioned to suppress any negative thoughts about him. We were warned that any suspicion on him, to the pure, all things are pure. But to those who are corrupted and do not believe, nothing is pure. In fact, as any negative thoughts about him, we were warned that any suspicion on him would reflect our own personality, using the words found in 1 Timothy chapter 1, verse 15, I quote, "To the pure, all things are pure. But to those who are corrupted and do not believe, nothing is pure. In fact, both their minds and consciences are corrupted," unquote. And in those days, absolute obedience was a must. We needed to have an unquestioned loyalty and reverence toward him.
Wow.
Sleeping beside a man I believed to be chosen by God was for me then a great privilege.
A great privilege sa kanya. Oh. Siya na mismo ang umamin
An
ha.
opportunity for a sinner like me.
Pero, ang tanong, gusto ka bang tabihan talaga ni Quiboloy?
But
Ewan
what
lang
followed
natin.
shattered my sense of faith and trust. Without a word, after turning off the light,
Wow.
embraced me, undressed me,
Niyakap at hinubaran.
and violated me with his lustful act,
Lastful act.
and left me in shock and speechless. He then said, "This is the fulfillment of God's revelation."
Oh. Ay, Diyos mio. Eto mga kababayan, pinagdasahan ni Quiboloy. Ewan lang natin na.
He explained that God had revealed to him that I was to partake in God's life through him by surrendering my body, soul, and spirit.
Okay.
He also mentioned that other girls would go through him in a similar manner.
Oh.
His words were strange, but I was too shocked to respond. The following day after that Sunday worship service,
Tapos ang sabi niya mga kababayan, maraming beses daw na nangyari. Hindi lang daw isa.
Apollo C. Quiboloy left for Manila, while I was left to carry on with my duties, including organizing carolers for our annual fundraising. Confusion consumed me. I felt betrayed by my faith, by him, and even perhaps by myself. I began questioning
Dito na mga kababayan, iyak-iyak na yan
whether what
siya.
had happened was indeed God's will or simply a gross abuse of power. When I returned to Manila, I was once again instructed to sleep in his room. Fear
Naulit na naman.
gripped me.
Ang tanong, bakit ngayon ka lang nagsasalita dyan? Dapat nung panahon na ginanyan ka ni Quiboloy, doon ka na nagsampa ng kaso para may specimen ba? Pakuna ng specimen kung may sperm ni Quiboloy.
But defying the anointing of God was unthinkable. We had been taught that such disobedience would invite a curse. The next morning, he asked if I understood God's revelation. I remained silent, unable to process what had happened. He then referenced me to Philippians chapter 2, verses 6 to 12, explaining that just as Jesus humbled himself and obeyed God even to the point of death, so he too must obey God's will by partaking in carnal things. He claimed this was necessary for him to understand the human experience and to fully empathize with others. He even told me that he had also been reluctant to accept God's revelation, but as God's chosen one, he had no choice but to act on it. I was more confused with his explanation, but I could not complain. I wanted to go out from the ministry, but I lacked courage. I did not know where to ask help. I had cut all the bridges behind my life, and I could hardly go back because it would mean starting all over again.
Starting all over again.
My family was poor, and I had no connections. My option was to stay.
Yan nga ay sinasabi ni mga kababayan ni Quiboloy. Gusto daw siya pagkapirahan nito Humihingi ng napakalaking datong daw mga kababayan.
Because I was still bothered with what? What if it was indeed God's will? December of the same year was an escape for me. Caroling as one of our sources of funds, and which had been participated in by every member of the ministry all over the country, became my excuse of staying away from the worker's house in Manila where he stayed. That I had sinned because I truly was filthy. In detail, I imagined sins.
I truly was filthy.
I imagined
Siya lang umamin.
sins and made it appear that I had committed them all. That was how stupid I was. So
Stupid
vague
talaga.
and exaggerate my story. Just
Exaggerate.
to appease the anger of our leader, Apollo C. Quiboloy, not knowing it would become my death sentence later.
Ba't buhay ka pa?
My exaggerated story was then
Lalo na ngayon, exaggerated.
distributed to all his leaders and ministers, and they believed I was filthy, I was pervert, and I was wicked,
Pervert.
painting me as the sole guilty party,
Parang si Dilima magsalita, no?
while ACQ remained innocent. Little did I know this confession would lead to my condemnation within the ministry.
And Mr. Resita, pag sinasabi nyo ACQ, sino po yun?
Apollo Carrion Quiboloy
Quiboloy.
po. October 15, 1998, I was sent back here to receive a punishment through prayer and fasting in the guise of spiritual discipline. And the fasting they planned for me was beyond my imagination.
Quiboloy, Mukha ni Quiboloy, poker face. Walang action.
It took me 7 months to suffer hunger and isolation in the mountain of Tamayong in Kalinan, Davao City. They placed me in a small, dark, elevated room beside a kitchen, separated only by a macan walls. My bed was rough,
Iyak-iyak ka.
made of uneven slabs with exposed nails pressing into my back as I slept. I woke up this morning in pain with no
Kikirit si
bedding,
Quiboloy.
and the cold October nights left me shivering. I requested a blanket and a mat, but I was denied.
Masalamat ka. Hindi pwede mo salita si Quiboloy ngayon mismo dahil kung pwede pa lang, matagal ka na nasupalpal.
Every day from 8 to 5 p.m., I followed a strict routine, regardless of the weather. Enduring hunger and isolation, no one allowed near me,
No one.
as I was labeled filthy.
Phil.
And deserving of this punishment, members were forbidden to speak to me. I was
Walang luha mga kababayan ha. Wala yung luha.
physically very weak and so depressed.
Ganyan ang mga witness yung T-virus mga kababayan. Dati-rati pa. Mga walang luha.
Depressed. I prayed
Tapos,
that God would just take my life.
Tingnan nyo yung itsura ha. Biglang, wala man lang transition na from iyak to to iba ng expression. Sa isang iglap, nagbago ang itsura. Oh,
Ilang
tingnan niyo,
beses
ha?
ko akong nanalangin na sana kunin na ako ng Panginoon. I started to question God and wondered if this was truly a divine process or simply human punishment. I asked myself, is this ACQ's way of retaliating because I rejected the life he imposed on me? I no longer saw the reason to stay. I submitted my resignation as a full-time volunteer worker for the second time.
Cry! Oh,
But
wala akong luha.
Apollo Carrion Quiboloy refused it again. A week later,
Ah?
on September 30, 1999,
Yan ba ang umiyak, mga kababayan? Saan ang luha? Sana nakita na dahil sa makapal niyang
I
make-up.
decided to leave without asking for permission, determined to free myself from his control.
Moments ago, nag-cry-cry. Oh, ngayon, wala na. Parang naging kontrabida na ang itsura.
It was only when I left out of the group, that I
Artista na
finally
ba yan?
clearly understood
Pwede
that the man
na.
I had believed to be God's chosen and holy
Mm.
was an impostor,
Impostor, hindi pastor.
oppressor,
Oppressor?
and deceiver.
Ah.
And deceiver.
Wag ka talagang dilima, no? Galing iyak, mga kababayan yan, ha? Oh. Biglang nag-transition sa ganyang itsura.
He manipulated me
Wow! He manipulated me.
using his authority and power as God's anointed. And
Anong masasabi niyo dito, mga kababayan, na ginanyan daw siya ni Quiboloy? Maniniwala ba kayo na ganyan ang type ni Quiboloy? Post your comments below.
divine revelation